So the Coen brothers have a couple of films in the Criterion collection. Their first film, Blood Simple.
Classic
film.
Such a
Frances
great flick.
McDormand's first film. Of course, Emmett Walsh is in this as one of the most menacing characters.
So good.
It's so awesome. Such a classic. And what's funny is a couple years before the Coens made this film, Joel Coen was working with Sam Raimi as one of the editors on the original Evil Dead film. Sam Raimi, Joel Coen, Ethan Coen, Holly Hunter, Frances McDormand, Kathy Bates are all friends. And Bob Tabor, they've all worked and lived together and things like that in their early in their career.
Go back to did they film? Was that filmed in the Fargo area? Because I know that they're from there at least originally.
No, this was in Texas.
Okay.
And then
they shot it in Texas too, because I know it took place in Texas. But
yeah,
okay.
And then I'm trying to think.
Such a good flick.
Yeah. So another and I think more Coen Brothers films will get on the Criterion collection. This is all they have so far. And this was Inside Llewyn Davis, which came out in 2013. It stars Oscar Isaac. Fantastic film. It's a lot like The Big Lebowski and The Man Who Wasn't There and A Serious Man. It's kind of one of their, and Hail Caesar, it's one of their more circular kind of films that feels like it's meandering and going nowhere and kind of comes full circle, but it really does go somewhere, and it does take, I think, a couple of views to really click. This is their only recent film by the Coen brothers that wasn't shot by oh my gosh, we were just talking about him earlier. Why did I suddenly forget?
The
Roger Deakins, sorry. This is one of their only films as of recent that wasn't shot by Roger Deakins, who's now an Oscar winner for Blade Runner 2049. So this, because he was working on a different film. So this one has a slightly different look than what you're used to from the Coens ever since Barton Fink, which is Roger Deakins has been their DP since then. So this right here has kind of like a soft focus. It's set in the early 60s around the Greenwich Village like folk music scene.
So is Bob Dylan in it?
Yeah, at the very end, like a young Bob Dylan's making like kind of at the birth of his. Well,
because that's precisely what it reminds me of. It reminds me of that because I saw a Bob Dylan documentary that was.
Well, and the poster art for this movie is based on an album cover by Bob Dylan.
Okay.
I'm not as well versed in Dylan, so the Nobel Peace Prize winning poet. I have mad respect for him, but I'm not as versed, so I don't know all of his albums. But a lot of the look was.
Why
based
not,
on
Joe?
Yeah. All along the what? That's. Anyways, so because earlier we were talking about Coen Brothers films, and we were talking specifically about Roger Deakins. Now, the cinematographer for the first three Coen Brothers films, which was Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, and Miller's Crossing, was Barry Sonnenfeld, who would go on to become the director of the Addams Family movies, Men in Black films, and Life with Mikey, and a few other films that are kind of forgettable. But, like Big Trouble and RV and that really god-awful Wild West movie adaptation of the classic
The one that
series.
You love so much?
Yeah, with a giant freaking steampunk spider. That's the dumbest thing ever.
But wasn't that a band that we were going to start, Joe? It's the Steampunk Spiders?
Steampunk Spiders.
Okay.
You know what? There's probably a band out there doing that now. Steampunk music is like a new subgenre. It's like nerdcore. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm a little bit more traditional that way. But I don't know if I showed you this. This is another Criterion I've got. This is Brian De Palma film. Not one of his earlier films, but it's sort of the middle of his career. And, an incredibly good thriller. John Travolta's actually really effective.
What year was this made?
What was it? 81.
Cool.
81. And
I haven't seen that. I have not seen this one yet.
If you haven't seen Blowout and you're looking for a good thriller, it's about a sound man. For some reason, I'm having a brain fart. There's a name for guys who do sound effects. A Foley artist. He's a Foley artist for films, so he records sound effects for films.
Got it.
And
to make it more believable.
Like B-grade horror flicks, right? Like early 80s slasher films. There's a nice parody of that at the beginning. he accidentally records the sound of a senator being assassinated or a congressman being assassinated.
Cool.
And it just a web of intrigue, great camera work. It's the reason why it's part of the Criterion Collection.
Okay.
Not every movie in the Criterion Collection is going to be up your alley. Certainly some are not up my alley. Sallow or The 100 Days of Sodom. Not really a movie I can go to, so I probably will never own it. And if you know what that film is, I don't have to explain it to you. If you don't know what that film is, Google it or wiki it. It is just a nightmare of a film. But there is artistic significance to it, and that's why it's part of the Criterion. Now, 2 years ago, I saw the Riff Tracks boys, formerly of Mystery Science Theater 3000, rip this film, which was mostly shot here, by the way.
Which is what we're gonna do a live stream of this.
That's the Salt Palace, right there.
Okay.
There's even a documentary on the Salt Palace on this because that's such a central part of the theme.
And this one is not copyrighted also, right? This is not...
this particular print, this remastering is by the Janus Collection or the Criterion Collection, but no, the film itself is in, like, we could watch the colorized version, which I'd prefer not to, but it is a copyright-free movie, but it's in the public domain. The only film that Herc Harvey ever made. Now, the Riff Tracks guys made fun of this movie, and they made a joke about it being in the Criterion Collection. And I could see why, and there was, I think, a small question mark from a lot of people, like, why would they... But the more you rewatch this film, or the more you watch it, and I love this poster, by the way, this was commissioned for the Criterion, it's a really effective little low-budget chiller. And that's part of the reason why it's on here. Their goal, believe me, the Criterion isn't so prestigious. They've had RoboCop in their collection, which is fantastic sci-fi action satire. It's not high art, though. But they have films in there that, you know, if they could, and originally had on Laserdisc, they would probably get Jaws back. And they'd probably get The Taxi Driver back. And they'd probably get, although Taxi Driver is pretty artistic, but they'd probably have King Kong and Star Wars and Gone with the Wind and all those movies back in their collection if they would. So they're not quite like... Well, I think a lot of people have this notion that they're very like... People who watch Criterion films watch no other kind of films. They must be foreign and independent, and that's not the case. Yeah. I mean, this year alone, Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
And
classic
Bull Durham both got Criterion releases, which is incredibly fantastic. Of course, they do have some movies in their collection that, again, I'm not too fond of. Dazed Confused is not a favorite of mine, but they got it. That's cool. As the more I pick up on these, I'd be more than happy if you're interested in talking about some of these releases, because they are really good. I think I've shown you this before. La Haine, which is French for The Hate. This film by Mathieu Kassovitz is so incredibly good. Came out in 1995. I don't know how I missed it when it originally came out. If you're a fan of Trainspotting and Pulp Fiction and those sort of subversive films of the mid-90s, this is one that's right up there with it.
Okay.
And just as important, it kind of has the look of a John Carpenter film, but it also has a social realism to it that is just impeccable. Vincent Cassel, who you probably know from films like Guest House Paradiso, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, Brotherhood of the Wolf, Irreversible. He's in this film. So is Saeed Taghmaoui. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's in Wonder Woman.
Yeah. He's also in G.I. Joe.
That's right. Was he Breaker?
I can't remember. Breaker or how? No, I don't want to say how. That's
Tunnel Rat. I can't remember which character, but
anyway,
no.
Yeah, I know who he is.
This is one of his earliest films.
Okay,
so the
cool.
cast is just impeccable, and this was a find when I saw on the Criterion YouTube channel when they did their 3 Reasons segments, which they sadly no longer do, but it was for every new release during like the year 2013 and 14, or maybe it was 12 and 13. But they would give you a short segment called 3 Reasons. 3 Reasons why you should see this film. And this one's one of the ones that captivated me the most. Another one that I picked up that I absolutely love, there are a couple of filmmakers that have the bulk of their collection or filmography is available on the Criterion. And one is Wes Anderson. All of his films,
I love
except
him.
for The Grand Budapest Hotel, have Criterion releases. And another filmmaker...
Why not Grand Budapest?
I don't know why they haven't reached a deal with Fox Searchlight.
Interesting.
Because Fox Searchlight is Fantastic Mr. Fox and the Darjeeling Limited.
Which is brilliant, by the way. If you haven't
Yes.
seen Fantastic Mr.
Yes.
Fox, you need to see that right now.
It's so good.
Like, watch that movie. It's
cuss
one
you
of the
say?
greatest.
Oh, the cuss I say. Also, I would recommend Isle of Dogs, too. Wes Anderson's latest. This one probably will get a Criterion. But another filmmaker who tends to have a lot of films in the Criterion collection, Terrence Malick. This is one of young Sissy Spacek, young Martin Sheen, his first lead role. It's 1973, which was a good year for cinema. You had like The Exorcist and Enter the Dragon. I think that was 74. Pretty sure it was 73. But Terrence Malick, this is loosely based on Charles Starkweather and the Charles Starkweather murders. I cannot stress how good this film is. Aside from Badlands, Days of Heaven, his follow-up, the only other movie he made in the 70s, is also a Criterion collection. Then you skip ahead 20-some-odd years, and you get his other film, The Thin Red
Thin Red
Line.
Line, that was actually great. I saw that in the theater, man. That was great.
Thin Red Line is fantastic. Very
Beautiful cinematography in this movie.
I would say underrated, but it was nominated for Best Picture of that year. This, alongside Saving Private Ryan, Elizabeth and Life is Beautiful, and Shakespeare in Love. Two Elizabethan era films, 3 World War II films, and they all lost to Shakespeare in Love. A film that most people don't care about anymore.
Kenneth Branagh, right? No? Kenneth Branagh directed that.
I can't remember
Shakespeare in Love?
because that's how little I really
Cared about
regarded that film compared to these other films.
Yeah.
This movie is monumentally moving.
So good.
And I think is more relevant now, and was just as relevant then, and was just as relevant when the original 1960s film came out, and just as relevant when the book was written. And a couple of Terrence Malick other films now have Criterion, The New World and Tree of Life. And I plan on picking them all up because he is an incredibly good American independent film. Well, I say independent, they're from studios. He's an American auteur. He's an artistic filmmaker. And it's very much of the love it or leave it variety because his films require patience, and which is good. You gotta By the way, Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 3 Steelbook is available now.